That's crazy, dude. All right, man. Well, let's talk some fishing here. That's what we're here for. That's why we're called Real AF TV. Oh, well,
Yeah.
so there's been some video editing happening, man. We are going to get some video up before the snow flies. I will take a day off of work if I have to make that happen.
Oh, hell
Um,
yeah.
fuck yeah, because we're working on it. But yeah, the second half we're just gonna talk about some cars because some shit went down, and um, it's video game related. But I got to talk about cars. Let's get to the panfish, dude. Um, so we in episode 9 we talked a little bit about fall fishing, generally
Yes,
speaking.
sir.
We focus more on bass. You talked about, what was it, thermocline? Is that how you say that word?
Yeah, the thermocline. Yep.
Okay, and then the fall turnover, and so I don't. Let's not get into those. We'll work them in organically, I think. Um, but the big thing is ice fishing is super hot right now. Like everybody is jacked on ice fishing, thinking that like fishing's just over. And I'm thinking this is some of the best weather of the entire year. Why is that? Why
I
is
think
everybody already like switching gears?
I think it's just that there's a lot of ice fishermen out there that just are so into ice fishing that they're just like,
Oh,
"Oh, here it comes," and it's like, "No, bro, you've got
I'm
plenty
like,
of
it's
time."
September. It's still 80 today. Like,
Even when it hits freezing temperatures, that doesn't mean the water freezes right away. You got a
right,
while.
right, right.
So, but
Good
yeah,
fucking point, dude.
yeah, people they just jump the gun of everything.
Just
It's
getting too hyped, too excited.
there. There's a girl I know that may be listening to the podcast that I'm calling you out, and she'll be like June posting on Instagram like it's almost Halloween. Like, no, it's fucking not.
Nah. Summer just started. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Yeah,
It is not almost Halloween.
we are in the thick of things. We got a while. It's not almost Halloween now. And this summer's summer's over, pretty much.
Right, right, right. Yes, because in Minnesota, for all you people listening outside of Minnesota, if you are, thank you for listening and share with your friends. We have a official end of summer celebration. We call it Labor Day across the
Yes.
country. But in Minnesota, we're just basically like, yeah, fucking summer's over. Um, Not always the case. Like again, we're in the 80s and shit. But the point that I'm trying to get here is fall pan fishing is totally a thing. I
Right.
mean, I'm looking at stuff all over the internet here. I'm doing research. But in all my research, I just had a general thought while reading, and that is the air temperature has to have a bigger effect on how the fish move. Or maybe not the air temperature having a bigger effect, but it must affect the water temperature quicker or something. Am I making sense?
Yeah. The air temperature definitely plays a role
Okay.
because it also, this time of year, like regardless of how hot it gets during the day, it cools
Mhm.
down at night. So that in turn
Right.
starts cooling down the water temperature. Like when I was out this last weekend, the water temp was 68 degrees.
Okay.
And that's like, I think it warmed up pretty fast, but I think we were trying to hit like low 60s in spring when we were recording. And then
Mhm.
we had that warm week and we were like mid to high 60s then.
Right.
So we're back to water temps of like late spring.
Right. Right.
So
So that
yeah,
happened fast.
it does happen fast. So the the nights get a lot colder,
Mhm.
and I think a big part of it is the when the sun rises and sets too, because
Sure.
that starts killing off all the plants. They're
Oh,
not
sure.
they're not dead, but they're weaker. They're starting to
Yeah.
die off. When I go
Well,
fishing,
they do start to die. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
when I go fishing now, I notice with a jig and everything, the exact same spots that I was fishing in the summer where I'm jigging through and I'm just kind of like ripping through the weeds. Now I'm hooking them all and I'm pulling up a shit ton of them because they're all coming out at the roots.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I was looking up on liveoutdoors.com where it just basically said, hey, the dying weeds is happening. And so if you got the dying weeds, that's lower oxygen levels. The fish are going to start to leave. Like
Yep.
that's all there is to it.
Yep. Well, the weeds that are deeper live longer. So
hmm
the stuff starts dying off, and then um, the sorry,
What?
my wife came downstairs and started dancing and trying to distract me, and it worked.
And it totally worked.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. Chuck some shit at it.
That's okay.
All right. So sorry. The anyways, um, the weeds, the stuff that is on the deep weed edge starts to die off. And no, I said that wrong. Everything above that starts to die off faster.
Okay. In the shallows.
What ends up staying is the deep weed edge.
Okay.
So like that's the last to go. And I think we talked about on the last one. So everything starts to go deeper because that's where the highest amount of oxygen is coming in because the plants are putting out that oxygen.
hmm
So basically everything in the lake starts to go to that deep weed edge because
Starts to
that's where they're
move
getting the
deeper.
air. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And in this outdoors, in this liveoutdoors.com article, it said everything's feeding aggressively, basically getting ready for the upcoming winter. And I was just like, well, yeah, I mean, that's all animals. I guess I didn't even think about it, but I guess fish are doing that too. Because I also read a Northland Tackle article, and this is a direct quote. It says that fall-like air is always an indicator to better angling or at least better fishing yet to come. And I was like, I thought it would be fucking harder because the the water I thought was becoming more of the same temperature.
No, so I think that's what they're talking about, like, or better fishing yet to come, because that fall turnover isn't a very long period, but
Oh.
it is a shit period where, like, just like you were thinking, everything becomes the same temperature. But eventually, because those cold nights and then cold days, like when we hit fall, like it'll get to a point where some days you're getting like 50, 60 degrees is the high.
Yeah.
And then it drops to colder at night. So like that
Mhm.
water temperature on the surface just keeps getting colder and colder, but deeper down relatively stays the same. It doesn't
Sure.
fluctuate that much. So they'll
Sure.
start going deeper because there's more oxygen and it's more comfortable for them.
Sure.
So it's more like just shit's transitioning right now. So that's where it becomes a little bit harder because it's a little
Okay.
bit harder to find the fish. I was having that problem this weekend where I was
Okay.
going out and I was trying to catch some bass with some new lures and stuff, and I was only catching northerns. Like,
Mm.
this shit that I'm using should be catching bass. And I
Oh.
did catch bass when I was fishing the deep weed edge, but the new lures I was trying didn't go all the way down there. So I was fishing where I
Oh.
thought they should have been in a little bit shallower water, mainly just because I wanted to use those new lures and
Right.
realized like that's just not going to do the trick today. Caught
Right.
two
Right.
northerns and didn't end up catching what I was trying to catch.
Yeah. So when are the northerns up there looking for the panfish that are still hanging around in that upper area that haven't
Yeah,
moved out yet?
yeah, pretty much. And on this lake, there's northerns in like every aspect of the water column. They're everywhere looking for food. Like
Oh,
anywhere
okay.
there is bait fish, you can find northerns.
Okay.
I'll catch northerns deep with everything else. I catch northerns in the mid shallows and the thicker weeds. I'll catch northerns. Braxton 2 weeks ago caught a pretty big northern right off the dock, bobber fishing with a little tiny piece of bait. Like the
Oh, wow.
some lakes have northerns like a plenty. I don't know how to say it different. And
Right.
they're aggressive and they're trying to eat because they're all,
Sure.
trying to get food. They're all competing for food. And I think my theory in this lake is like if a northern doesn't get big quick, it's going to be musky food. So they're
Oh,
like, fuck, 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 fuck. I gotta find food. I gotta find food. I gotta
they're
get
just
bigger.
always, I gotta get big. I gotta get big.
I gotta get big.
Well, the liveoutdoors.com also said like go deep for bigger gills. And in the last episode, we talked about the Minnesota DNR is talking about restricting the size of panfish, or the take on panfish, how many you can possess, because there's so many. I would say there's so much vocalization in the fishing community in Minnesota saying like, what happened to all the big bluegills? What happened to all the panfish? What happened to the big panfish? Where are they? And you said you just got to go bigger. You just got to, I mean, just got to go deeper. You
I go
find the
deeper,
bigger
bro.
fish.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, follow us on Instagram. You'll see Tim. Tim just, yeah, you just look, here they are. They're right here. And this
Yeah, got a big one.
liveoutdoors.com article was just like, well, all the big gills, they just get the hell out of here. They go deep sooner.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's what the Northerns were doing then. So like you could catch panfish in the shallow still, is right?
Oh
They're
yeah,
just,
dude. There's plenty of sunfish off the dock. Well, the dock's out now, but off the dock there's plenty of gills, and there's still some big ones there too. It's just like bass, sunfish. There will be big ones up where there's cover because they can hide in the weeds, and there's still oxygen up there. Like the weeds haven't died off shallow yet; they're still
sure.
there.
Okay.
So that's where it gets a little bit tougher too, because there are fish moving deep, but there's other ones that are still shallow because they all have their own. They're not smart, but they all have their own
The
like
panfish?
opinions. Like all fish,
Oh.
they're all dumb.
Oh, okay. Right.
Fish are stupid. All fish. Like don't let anybody tell you any different. Like, and if anybody's like, "Oh, what about a dolphin?" That's not a fish, dummy. So,
You're the dumb one now.
yeah, what up? Fictional character that makes me feel good to say I know more than you. You don't exist. What's up? But
Yeah.
there, some of them go deep sooner than later. Some of them go there. There's panfish that will spawn later than other panfish.
Oh, okay.
They just get, some of them just have weird opinions, and there's really no rhyme or reason to why they'll do it. So, but the majority of them will go deeper now. But you can still find fish all over the water column. I caught, it wasn't too many weeks ago where you're like, it's super hot out. You're like, I don't really think there's going to be much up, like super shallow. Catch a 4-pound bass in like 1 foot of water. No joke. In a foot, dude. And that water temperature has to be like 85 degrees in a foot of water. It's like a bathtub.
Right.
And then just
That's
4-pounder
so
up
weird.
there. Probably just like nobody else is up here eating these sunnies. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So there's still the panfish up that far.
Yeah. If there's, and the bait fish too, like there's always minnows swimming in that shallow water.
Oh, sure, of course.
Always. So
Yeah.
where there's food, there's potentially fish. Like even if the water's uncomfortable, they're
Sure.
like, whatever. I'll go
Right.
get a snack where it's uncomfortable.
We've all been there, man. We've all
Yeah.
been there.
Right.
I don't trust that corner store, but I really want some nachos right now.
I heard that there was, it's, think of it this way, like all the other fish are out there eating all the fish, and then they're just like, they hear that there's no line. You're like, you're going out to lunch and
Right.
you only have so much time on your lunch break, and you're like, dude, Mickey D's sounded good, but look at that line, dude.
Yep.
I guess I'm gonna go to the gas station and microwave a burrito, because there's no line for that.
There's no line for that. That's great. So I'm gonna stick to this living outdoors article for now, and they say that a lot of the panfish, they'll hang out kind of around the spawning grounds still, and if not at the spawning grounds, like if you had a spot that was hot in the spring and you're fishing it and you're not getting what you need, probably pulling small ones out still. But if you go almost just out and off the edge, you should be able to find the eaters that you're looking for.
Yeah, and a lot of times the steepest drop-offs from these spots.
Oh,
So not just straight out from where they are, but try to find the steepest drop-off closest to where they would spawn. Because when
nice.
it comes to that transition period, when the drop-off is fast, it takes way less time for them to retreat into deeper water, because instead of like having to swim a bunch of feet to get that gradual slope, they just go,
Mm-hmm. And it's there.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'd be like, I can be in 6 feet right now,
Mm-hmm.
and all I gotta do is swim down to get to 12.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm just on this ledge, so they can
Right.
be where those deep weeds are, but also like that they're deeper.
Yeah. They just swim 2 feet on the x-axis, and then they can go
Yep.
6 feet on the y-axis,
That's
and it's
that's
like bam.
perfect. Yeah, I'm like using my hands here, so it's not
Yeah, I was
helping
gonna say the
any
video version of
audio.
this podcast definitely will be a good one with the way that your hands are moving and stuff like that. Because I get what you're saying, but yeah, it's just there's a lot less
We need to get a
lateral
slide whistle button.
direction because they want to go vertical.
Yes, vertical. Exactly. Yep. It's so
Yeah.
much easier for them to go vertical, especially when they're moving in a whole school.
Oh,
You know, the
duh.
the
That slipped
panfish,
my mind
yeah,
completely.
the panfish kind of stick to, or the sunfish kind of stick together, but the crappies really stay in a school.
Oh,
It's like
really?
ice fishermen know it too, that they'll drill multiple holes and they'll chase the crappies because the whole school will swim together.
Sure.
It's weird. Crappies like to move a lot. They're weird. But one thing that I have heard, I was reading an In Fisherman article, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have side imaging. I've done the trolling aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking backwards here.
No, you're good.
He'll This guy that I read was not from Minnesota because he was talking about how he used 3 lines and we can only use one per person.
Right.
But basically, he trolls at like a mile an hour, like from like point 0.9 to like 1.2 miles an hour. And
Okay.
I know a guy who does this, and I've been out there and I've tried it myself. And basically, he does like a Mr. Twister, like smaller jig. So it'd be like
Okay.
a jig head with like a curly tail grub, and just drag that trolling. I've done the same thing. Small
It just
crankbaits
sits on the
work.
bottom and
No, when you're trolling there, you just
oh, and
don't let enough line out so it goes all the way down. Just kind of get it down to where you think the fish are in the water column. Like if you're,
mm-hmm.
it depends on the lake, but like in Chaminade, where I fish a lot,
Yep.
relatively clear water, the weed edge is somewhere in the realm of like 15 to 17 feet for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And I would drive in that depth, and I would try to like let the bait drop down and keep it in that realm where it's like right about at the weed top,
Mm-hmm.
because those fish kind of suspend in the middle of the water column.
Okay.
And I would
Sure.
drive on that deep drop off until I got a bite, and then I'd be like, all right, there's one. And then I'd try to target that, you can slow it down. And I saw that you put it in the dock, and I've done it myself and other people. And you, once you find the fish,
Mm-hmm.
you can vertical fish for them, just like
Yeah.
you're ice fishing. You
Yeah.
and they and
That
they
was one of the
use
biggest surprises during my research.
yeah,
I was like, whoa,
and
what?
you can use the same presentation. And I actually use the same presentation in the middle of summer for panfish with like a jigging spoon, but I'll let it fall all the way to the bottom
Okay.
and then like rip it off the bottom and let it fall again and rip it off the bottom, where the
Oh,
vertical presentation is almost kind of like bouncing it and keeping it in their
sure.
face.
Sure.
But in the summertime, I'll let it fall and rip it up and fall and rip it up,
Okay.
which can work in the fall too. It's not like, there's any steadfast rule that says you can't do that. But vertical
Right.
fishing seems to work pretty good once you're on them. And
Sure.
the reason that I brought up the trolling is because I've done the trolling, but I don't have side imaging on my sonar. And he says that he
Mm-hmm.
does the trolling with the 3 lines, and then he'll watch on the sonar to find the structure in the area. And like if he finds like a tree or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then as he's, trolling his stuff, and if
Mm-hmm.
he sees that there's some fish there, all of a sudden he's like turning course and going and jigging vertically on that piece of structure
No.
in the water column, if it's in the same
Yeah. Yeah.
area.
For
And the
sure.
side imaging will show you like 150 feet off to the side of your boat.
Jeez.
So
So
it's
is
not,
that what side imaging means? Is like literally off the side of your boat? Like it's
yeah,
just shooting the radar
it
out the side.
literally, yeah, it's a radar that goes from straight under you to 150 feet out.
Damn.
It's really hard to explain the picture because it kind of looks like two images put on top of each other.
Oh.
You just have to like Google image that because I don't know how to explain it. But
Okay.
it'll show you what's off to the side of you.
Okay.
And if you know how to read it, you can see pictures. And it's not
Sure.
like the live sonar imaging
Right.
that's out
Right.
there now, but it
Right.
will show you like 150 feet is 50 yards. It's half a football field.
Right.
You can see half a football field off to your side.
Yeah.
So it's really helping you eliminate dead water. You might be
Sure.
in the
Of
right
course.
spot, but once you find that structure and you go jig that structure, bam, fish fry.
Fish fry. So do you switch colors like they advise on in the live outdoors? Is that seem to have a big effect on what you're doing, or is the clear water sort of kind of just like, because you said, Chaminade, what you do most of the time is very clear. Like, does that ever fuck with it at all? Do you think?
In my opinion, not for crappies.
Yeah.
They and not really sunfish either. Like crappies like weird bright colors anyways. Like I don't have good
Oh.
luck fishing other fish with odd weird colors. I have way more luck with bass and stuff using natural colors. But for crappie, it's bright pink, purple. I I caught a 13.5 inch crappie off of
Jesus.
a jig with an underspin. So an underspin is like a
Yeah.
blade that's off of the jig head. So it's like a
Oh,
little willow
almost like a
blade.
spinner bait coming off
Yeah,
of a
dude.
jig.
It's a willow blade, like from a spinner bait. So it's like the jig head has an extra loop on the bottom. You got the loop on the top
Okay.
for the line tie, and then the bottom has a loop. And then there's a
Mm.
barrel swivel that comes off of that and a
Mhm.
blade. And it's called an underspin. And you can get that for like swim baits, swim jig heads and stuff.
Oh.
And
Does that
they
send more vibration through the water then? Is it
vibe
shiny?
yeah,
Like, is it like
vibration.
a spinnerbait, I guess? Is it doing what a
Y-
spinnerbait does?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's shiny and it flashes. It's not like a big long rod, so it's not floating freely. It can kind of like hit the lure and stuff, but it'll flutter and
Oh.
spin and hit. And yeah, it can make a little bit more noise, more vibration, more flash. And I seem to have a lot of luck using them for crappie. People use them for walleye too. I haven't
Mhm,
had a lot of luck using them for walleye, and I don't
mhm,
know if that's just they're a little bit more finicky on the lake that I go, and they like a more natural
mhm.
presentation without all the extra shit. Like
Sure.
the more aggressive swim bait tails seem to do less good too.
Oh,
The
interesting.
Northland one that I like to use is kind of uh more floppy plastic, a less
Hmm.
stiff, a softer. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. No.
It just kind of moves, more
More.
naturally, less of a harsh vibration,
Sure.
and that seems to work awesome. But
Hmm.
the crappies, it was a bright green tail with like a purple body. The jig
Mm.
head, I believe, was green, and then it had that underspin. Like it's a real odd looking thing. Like
Yeah.
nothing, and normal fish wouldn't see that in the wild. Or it's not something that they would see in the wild.
Right. That's
But
just
they're
so
still
crazy.
like, I'm eating it, you know.
Yeah. 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 Is that something that you've had luck with in the fall? That whole setup,
I haven't
or is it
fished a
just?
lot in the fall.
Okay.
I have had luck with it, but my parents pull their boat out relatively early. Like the boat came out
Sure.
this last weekend.
On Labor Day weekend already.
Yep.
Yeah.
So but this
Which is,
year,
again, that's sort of when we say summer ends, but there's definitely another week, maybe two, of what I would call late summer fishing, because even though it's getting down, even though it can get down to, say, 63. We're pushing 50, high 50s still. This time of year here in Minnesota, we can still have the warm days. And so I can't imagine that the water is completely converting into the low 60s or something like that by, I don't know, let's just say September 15th.
Right. No, it shouldn't drop much more than the high 60s that it's at right now for a while, unless we have some weird cold spell where we get like a week of like 60s is the high.
As
Then
the high. Yep. Which
yeah,
happens, which totally fucking happens here in
it's
Minnesota, especially
Minnesota.
up north.
Yeah. You never know. I don't try to be one of those guys that's like, oh well, this fucking weather. But I have said to people that like this last year was like it was 40s until it was 90, and then it was 90 until it was 40. Like we never
Yeah.
got that nice middle ground. But so far, knock on wood, it's been like mid 70s,
Yeah.
for a while now.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah. We've had that good late summer weather that is probably going to make the late summer, fall fishing, hopefully, as expected. It's always hard to say because we could have a crazy November that's just warm. And you could,
right.
again, all those ice fishermen from the beginning, all those ice fishermen could be bumming out through November
Mhm.
because we could have a decent November that would actually make for some decent, fall pan fishing. You can get out there and just catch the crappies right off that edge, like you were saying.
Right.
Northland said, and you sort of alluded to it too, not exactly, but kind of. So I'll just use that as the connector here. That they this time of year in the fall, what is it called?
Fall turnover.
Turnover. Yeah. So they said kind of in this fall turnover, they tend to find crappies, especially. So they tend to find panfish where the walleye are, or where they would expect the walleye to be, I guess, is what they basically said. So the difference between a crappie and a walleye, for anybody who hasn't listened to all the podcasts, I actually know this one, so I'm going to take it from you. The walleyes are almost always deep, right? They have their
Yeah.
big giant eyes. They're good at seeing deep, and the crappies tend to be higher up. And they said just basically they usually find fish where they expect walleye. They usually find the panfish during the fall turnover where they see walleye normally. And it was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Uh, and is that kind of what you said? So that rig that you were using, do you think that has something to do with it? The rig that you talked about, do you think that has something to do with how you're finding the crappies or getting them? Like, but you were saying you're using that during the summertime though, too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it has something to do with finding them. I think it's just going where I have been going. Just the knowledge of like knowing I need to go like deeper. Like in the
Oh,
summertime,
okay.
I probably fish like, for the most part, I fish like 200 yards. I'm not going to give anybody exact coordinates, but I fish like 200 yards. Nah, that's too. We'll say 200 feet. Yards is too much. 200
Okay, yeah.
feet further west of where I was this weekend, and I'll go from that spot further west, where now I'm 200 feet further east of like that spot, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going east because I know that the fish were to this west spot. This is where they were. They were here and they'd go there because it was like a mellow drop off. But this exact space that they were earlier, they went slightly over to this side where it drops off faster. And they're all
Oh,
the way along that drop off that goes to the east now. And
because of the drop off?
yes, and I
Okay.
fished the spot where I normally fished and wasn't having luck,
Mm-hmm.
and literally was like, let's try where it drops off sharper. And then
Mm-hmm.
we caught, I caught 3 crappie relatively quick when I was out there like scouting by myself. And then my dad
Nice.
and my nephew came out with me. Braxton caught a walleye. My dad caught a walleye. We all
Oh,
caught crappies. I caught a
Shit.
19-inch bass. Like they're
Damn.
all stacked up on that deep drop off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah.
I I didn't necessarily think the bass was going to be there. That one was a super big surprise, but to keep it relative to the topic of panfish is like you were pan fishing, right?
For the most part, I was using a small jig, but I always have a lot of my rods with. So like when I'm
Sure.
looking at the depth finder, all of a sudden I'll see something that's a little bit bigger of a mark, and I'm like, whoop! And I'll drop the panfish, the ultralight, and grab my other jig and toss that out right away.
Sure,
And that's when
sure.
I grabbed the bigger one, thinking like maybe this is a walleye out here, and I jigged it for a little while, and I didn't have anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have anything with the ultralight for a little while, anyways. So I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna rip a cast further
Sure.
down where I
Sure.
think the drop off should be and fish where I can't, like where the boat's not directly over them. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe like a walleye, like maybe we're spooking them because
Right.
they're on
The
this
shadow.
drop off and they're a little bit higher and
Yeah.
they can see us better. I don't know. And I
Right.
cast it out farther. And all of a sudden I'm just like, oh shit, I got something pretty good on here. And it didn't
Nice.
run to the surface, so I didn't think it was a bass right away. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. And then when it came a little bit higher up and I could see it, I'm like, oh shit, it's a big bass. Like, get the net. Like, I'm not trying to, just boat flip this thing. Like,
Right.
let's land this one. So
Nice.
yeah, it was a big fish. I have a picture, and it was a jig with a 3-inch bait on it, and that
Damn.
is easily sideways in its mouth with like plenty of room to spare. Like it
Nice.
has a big old bucket mouth.
That's it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thing's got a large mouth on it. There's no joke.
Right, which it was like I think 19 inches, like 4 pounds.
Nice.
I need.
Hell yeah. It's a
I'll
real
tell
nice
you.
fish up here for sure. And so were the other two fishing for panfish and they got walleye and they got crappie or like
We
were
were
you
fishing with fatheads because
Yep.
we knew that fathead
Was it
minnows will catch
minnow?
big crappies. They will
Yep.
catch walleye.
Yep.
We catch bass off of them. Not trying for bass with live bait because
Sure.
I'm not trying to have them like inhale the minnows, but it
Right.
happens.
Right. Of course. Of
So
course. If they're
yeah,
there, right?
yep,
If
yep,
they happen to be the one to swim by at the right moment
yep.
or wrong moment, however you want to look at that.
Side note about the fatheads, we go to the gas station where they got them, and we're like, yeah, I'll take 2 scoops of fatheads. And the dumb kid who called the cops on my dad because he was like, he drove away and didn't pay for his gas. And my dad's like, I totally did. And they're like, oh, must have been a different truck that was like yours then. Like, had the cops go to the cabin and shit.
What the
And it's like,
fuck?
yeah. And my dad's like, I paid in cash. Like, how are you confusing this? I came in and gave you
Came
money.
in and gave you money.
Yeah, this
Like, it
same
wasn't even a credit card or anything.
This same idiot's like, we don't have any fatheads. And I'm like, what about all those
Fat.
fatheads? Some kids.
Oh my god. I used to have that happen to me at Best Buy all of the fucking time, dude. All the time. I just go into Best Buy and be like, yeah, I need that. A thing that does this and that, and I think that's the thing. And they'd be like, well, what about this over there? And I'd be like, that literally has none of the connections I just told you I needed. I
Right.
need that.
Yep. Yeah, I've
It's
done
just
that.
like,
Yeah,
fuck, dude.
I've done that looking for like tripod parts and stuff for like, like I go in there and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out a way to mount a camera like this. And they're just like, what about this? And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. I have like tripods. I need something different. And they're like, you could do it like this. And it's like, I'm not trying to figure out how to ghetto rig your stupid shit that you got here. I have tripods. Did you hear that part? I have what you're trying to sell me. I'm trying to find something different than this because I don't want to rig that one up all stupid. They just don't listen.
Don't feel like duct taping my tripod to the back of the seat. That's all there is to it.
Yeah,
Fuck.
I have duct tape and a tripod. I don't need your help on possible answers. I'm trying to find something very specific. Do you have it or not? You don't? Good day, sir. Like,
a good day.
good day. Just tip of the hat. You don't have one on.
Tip the hat you don't have on. Oh my god, that's ridiculous. So with the jigs, because you're jigging stuff, right? So I wanna talk to you about that just a little bit more because I'm too curious now that you said the fathead minnows.
Yeah,
What did you have those hooked up through? Were you like jigging a fathead? Is that a
chicken.
thing? I'm making stuff up right now because I don't know fishing.
Yeah, I don't know what that it was I just did, but yes, jigging. I was using a Callan's Rattlin' Eye jig. They have live bait. When you go and you're looking for jig heads, there are differences between live bait jig heads and soft plastic jig heads.
Nice.
You can use a soft plastic one to fish live bait. It's harder to do the other way around. But it has
Mm.
like a shorter shank on it and it doesn't have a bait keeper. And then um so the shorter shank it was an 1/8 ounce, like a fire tiger color, black on the top, green, and then the bottom had like a little bit of orange. And then you
Oh,
put that
okay.
fat head just on the hook and jig it like that. You can work it just like the other stuff. It's a little bit harder to fish because you can't pop it free of the weeds like the soft plastic version
Oh, why is
because
that?
the face of the minnow is a lot softer than a soft
Oh.
plastic. And there's no bait keeper. Like
Oh.
you just pop it like that and your minnow's gone.
And
No
the
more
minnow
minnow.
in
And
okay. Okay.
when you catch a fish too, almost never have the minnow on there still, which actually led
Mm.
to Callan's. I put a picture on our Instagram, and Callan's actually reposted the picture I put
Yeah,
on
dude.
their page, which was dope.
Yeah.
And almost immediately, some kid on there was just like, "Did you catch it with just the jig head?" And just like, no, I was using live bait. And when the fish hits, a lot of times it eats the minnow
It gets
or
the live bait,
the
sure.
minnow gets, whatever happens. But I almost never have a minnow come up when I catch a fish. You just have the jig head in the fish and there's no minnow to
Okay.
be found. So,
Yeah. No. That's cool, dude. They retweeted because I don't know what the fuck that's called, a repost. I don't even know. Is that a
yeah,
thing? I don't know.
a
That's
repost.
cool though. That's really
I
cool. I
put
like
my
that that
photo
kid
out.
noticed it too.
Yeah, put my photo out and tag them in it. And then they just took the liberty of taking that and then
And tagging
posting.
you, tagging
I don't
us.
even know how they did that. I thought I
I
would
know.
have to.
That's what I don't know how I don't know enough
I
about
don't know
Instagram. If you
how.
do, go
Yeah,
ahead, hit us up.
yeah. I
Find
don't know
us.
how they just like take my picture and then post it without like maybe they screenshotted it, but they took it. And then I think they must have because they actually like doctored it up because down in the corner of the photo is our name in blue. It says realaf.tv in the
Yeah,
corner, which is something
I
I
saw that.
didn't do. That was
No,
like their team did
yeah,
that.
they somehow tagged us like that. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah. No idea
it
how that
is
worked.
dope.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works either. And I am actually a marketing person. Obviously, I need to learn more about marketing. I
Right.
think it's a business thing, and I think we need to switch. Anyways, let's not get down the IG.
Oh
Like,
yeah, maybe that is how it works. Yeah,
yeah, I
good.
think it might be because then you can see people tagging you easier and stuff like that. But anyways, let's not get down this IG rabbit hole yet because I just have to ask is what would you recommend then as we get into this fall turnover time here in the northern part of the uh, United States for jigging? Because the uh, liveoutdoors.com was like, jig with a live worm. You've been talking fatheads. You've been talking this other rig that you got. You've been talking plastics. Like, do you have a preference that you would personally suggest?
It depends on what fish I'm going for. If I'm
Okay.
trying to catch a sunfish, live
Well, we're talking
worm,
panfish, so let's just
yeah.
stick to pans, and maybe
Well,
pan and crappie are different too, right? Or
yes, yes.
maybe
Yeah.
crappie and sunnies are different. So I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. That's what I was getting at. But like if I want to catch the sunfish, a worm would work fine. I have way better luck on with crappies, um, with minnows. Because
Hmm.
the lake that I fish is so clear and the sunfish are so aggressive, that if I'm using a worm, I feel like I almost always catch a sunfish because that sunfish is coming to snatch that shit up so the other fish can't get it. But if I'm using
They're
a
super
minnow,
aggressive,
yeah,
even not in this fall turn. No matter what time of year,
yep,
the sunnies are just aggressive.
right. But if I'm
Okay.
using a minnow, the the sunfish just don't have a big enough mouth to eat it. Like you'll catch one every once in a while that'll try to hit the minnow where they had no chance at actually eating that minnow, but somehow you still catch
Mhm.
them. But the crappies have big old mouths like bass. Like that
Yeah.
13.5 inch crappie had like
Mhm.
a mouth like a small bass. Like it's
Damn.
big. They could have easily taken down a way bigger minnow than I was fishing with.
Wow.
So yeah. So if you're jigging and you're using live bait, like the guy in Fisherman was talking about using shiners.
Oh, wow.
Shiners is like something I've never caught a crappie off of because
Right.
he's definitely fishing down south because they
Right,
were
that's what I was
also
just gonna
talking
say. He's down south though,
yeah,
because he's got
and
3 lines on and
dude,
shit.
they were also talking in that article where he's like something about how it keeps his heart rate down for the occasional 3 or 4 pounder. Like 3 or 4 pounder. We're not
Jesus!
catching that shit
What
up
the
here.
fuck?
I mean,
No.
maybe you will, but it's like something that everybody's gonna be like, "Oh,
Oh my
dude."
god. That's some shit you
And
bring to the DNR.
yeah, and they're
That's
just
some
like,
record book shit.
yeah, and they're just like, "Hey, any given Sunday," you know.
Oh, shit, man, for
But
real, that's
but
crazy.
yeah, live bait. I'm always trying to use minnows when I'm the just that's my personal preference too. Like if
Mhm,
you're
mhm.
there's certain lakes too where like the water's a little bit dingier and stuff, and
Sure.
people catch crappies all the times off of all sorts of stuff. But
Okay.
a lot of the lakes I fish have clear water,
Mhm.
and the minnows seem to help me out a lot. So crappie minnows are named crappie minnows for a reason. They work well, but you can go up to a fathead and shiner. I suppose you could try your for like when I use shine. Excuse me. When I use shiners, I'm catching bass and walleyes off of them.
Sure. Yep.
Mainly bass. Then I
Yeah.
regret buying the shiners because
Right,
they're,
because you're just
they're
up north, like, up north here, it's just like they're yeah, crappies have big mouths, but they're
yeah.
not that big, so this
Well,
guy in Fisherman, he's totally
yeah.
further south than us, that's all there
Yes.
is to that,
And the
and he's
shiners,
giving very good tips. They're just not valid to the northern
right.
part here where
And
fish just like, these panfish just don't get that big.
right. And shiners aren't cheap. Like they sell them by the dozen,
Sure.
not by the
Sure, sure.
scoop.
Oh,
So
shit.
yeah, yeah, you can buy a half dozen of them if you want, but they're definitely a lot more expensive, and they're temperamental, dude. They die way easier. But that's
Interesting.
another thing that happens. The minnows don't, or the bait fish, I should say,
Mhm.
don't thrive as well in this kind of weather. And a harsh
Mm.
cold front can actually kill them off, or like they'll
Oh.
start fluttering weird and shit.
Oh,
And
shit,
then the
okay.
crappies will know that and come and try to feed on the dying bait fish. So when you're using those minnows,
Hmm.
you can catch all these fish because they're out there actually looking for a fish that's swimming weird when you're out there jigging.
That's a
So
weird
live,
swimming fish.
yes, exactly. And live bait, like I said, oh shit, it's fucking fruit flying. I smacked my mic.
But you didn't
These,
mute yourself, so you're good.
nope, good. So live bait, I'm always using minnows with crappies, but if you're using artificials, basically anything that you use ice fishing, you can jig with a small lipless crankbait. You can use a
Wow.
blade bait, which is basically the same thing as a lipless crankbait, but except it's made of metal. It's like a flat piece of metal that'll vibrate just like a lipless crankbait will. You can use
Nice.
jigging spoons. Those work well. I talked
Mhm.
about those earlier. You know, how I
Mhm.
rip them off the bottom. You could try doing that, or you could jig them in place. Here's a good tip, too. With jigging spoons, a lot of jigging spoons come in their package of whatever weight you're looking at, like eighth ounce is,
Mhm.
eighth ounce to a 16th ounce is normally what I use. They're not super big. You could probably go bigger if you want, but they always come with a treble hook. I replaced that treble hook with a single shank hook,
Oh,
and then I'll put the gulp minnow on it. Like they make
nice.
1 inch gulp minnows for like the small ones.
Uh-huh.
That works dope. I catch sunfish, and because that gold minnow is, when it's a 1-inch minnow, that's a small minnow, and
Right.
I'll catch crappie, perch, everything off of that. It's awesome.
Yeah. Shit, man. Perch is one thing that we didn't even talk about on here. So we're going to have to come back and follow that
Well,
because perch
perch,
are panfish too. But
yeah,
essentially, perch are little walleyes. And so,
yes,
and crappies are like little bass. And you put the panfish in there, it should work. So if you're looking for, if you're looking for perch, this should all work too. I
right,
would hope.
right. Because just like you said, they said the panfish are where the crappie or where the walleye would be,
Where the walleye are.
and
Right.
the perch are where the walleye are,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Sure.
It's also a pretty good food source for the walleye a lot of times too.
Oh, nice.
They're out there eating, because they live in the same realm. So there's a
Right.
lot of perch colored lures out there because of that.
Sure. Damn. Killer, man. Awesome. I hope to get some fall fishing in. I went out and didn't have great luck here in the late summer. So hopefully some fall stuff because I just love the weather. I just hate sweating.
Yeah, dude, I totally get that. I
Not
ruined
that I
so.
not that that makes me not fish. I'm just saying it's much more enjoyable for me if I can like be out there in just my t-shirt and
Oh
not
yeah,
have to worry about it sticking to me.
yeah. Or like when you're wearing your hat, you're out there wearing your hat, and it's just uncomfortable. Like I wear
Right.
my hat so I can see in the water better, but this thing on my forehead with how bad I'm sweating right now just feels so gross.
Feels worse. Oh yeah, man. All right. You want to talk some cars?
Yeah,
Fucking A. Let's get to
fuck me.
it. Fucking A. Let's talk cars.
Yeah, like I'm about to talk some card, boy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
All right, man.
Bop, 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 bop.
Cars go. Vroom, vroom, vroom. All right, to the break.
Yeah.